The movie opens with a narrative explaining that billions of years ago, the Guardians had channeled the energy of willpower to build a world from which they could keep watch over the rest of the universe, a planet they called OA. With their base built, the Immortals divided the universe into 3,600 sectors. To each sector, they sent a ring of willpower to find a chosen one, and as soon as it found a recruit, the ring would take him to the planet OA so the Guardians could begin his training. Over time, these recruits formed the powerful Green Lantern Corps. Thousands of years after their foundation, the Lanterns had been confronted by the entity of fear, Parallax. Only one Lantern, Abin Sur, had been able to capture the entity, imprisoning it on a desert planet in a lost sector of the universe. He said that a group of alien astronauts had had an accident and made a forced landing on the planet's surface. He explained that as the explorers wandered the place, they had accidentally fallen into a crater and ended up right where Parallax was. He said that they had woken up the entity, which had fed on their fear and finally gotten enough energy to free itself. With Parallax on the loose, Abin Sur went back to hunting it down. He said he had arrived in Sector 2814, where the entity was last seen. After days of travel, he had communicated with Sinestro to tell him that he was coming to help his fellow Green Lantern. However, Sinestro had replied that this was no longer necessary, as Parallax had already sucked the energy out of all the life forms on the planet, including the Ring-Bearer. Unable to believe it, Abin Sur had ended the call. Almost immediately, he had heard someone calling his name and then received a surprise attack. He recounted that Parallax had suddenly appeared inside his ship and started chasing him. The entity had managed to hit a blast of fear energy near his shoulder. With the entity taking over the entire spaceship, Abin Sur had gone to the escape pod and ejected, recording one last message to Sinestro. In the message, he warned him about the attack by Parallax and stated that he was going to the nearest habitable planet so that the ring could select his replacement. Meanwhile, on Earth, a fighter pilot named Hal Jordan woke up late for a flight test and drove to the Ferris hangar. The company director, Carol, had presented the powerful Saber 3, an artificial intelligence-powered fighter that promised to put an end to human error, to a group of interested parties. The U.S. general was interested in the project, and Senator Hammond had come to personally witness the negotiations. With everyone present, Hammond had said he wanted to see how the Saber performed in a simulation, and asked two of the AI-guided fighters to take on two of Ferris's best pilots in the air. Hal and Carol's daughter had begun their flight, and were soon caught by the Sabers, which had chased Hal while the woman tried to stabilize her aim. As soon as she had managed to brake, Carol had fired a shot through the simulator, but the pair of jet robots had managed to dodge it almost instantly. Thinking of a way to finish off the fighters, Jordan had used Carol as bait and tried to shoot him from behind, but the Sabers had managed to hit the girl and deflect the shot. Alone against the two ships, Hal decided to try to escape by gaining altitude. The controller, Tom, had warned him that all the jets stopped working after passing 50,000 feet, including his own. Even so, the pilot had continued to climb until all three aircraft began to fail. Even in free fall, Hal had managed to aim at the two Sabers and hit them, winning the simulation. But when it came to stabilizing the aircraft during the fall, he had started to remember the day he saw his father lose his life in a plane crash right in front of him. Lost in his memories, Hal couldn't keep control and ended up going into a spinning spiral as he got closer and closer to the ground. When he got below 10,000 feet, Tom had told him there was no time to get out of the spin and had told Hal to eject. The pilot had had nothing to do but watch as his jet crashed to the ground. Afterward, Carol and the rest of the team argued with Hal. They said that in addition to destroying a brand new fighter jet after the simulation, the company had lost its contract and would now have to fire most of the employees, starting with him. After the rest of the team left the office, Carol had asked what had happened. Hal had said his controls had crashed, prompting the woman to argue that he had had time to recover and still hadn't done it. Refusing to admit what had happened, Hal insisted that the control had crashed, and the two ended up in an argument. A few miles away, Abin Sur had landed on the coast and used what little energy he had left to send the ring in search of a new bearer. Without realizing what was happening, Hal Jordan went to his brother's house to celebrate his nephew Jason's birthday. After handing the boy a miniature jet, he walked back to his car when he was captured by the ring, which started transporting him to the beach. After a less than smooth journey, Hal was dropped off in front of a spaceship and saw something moving inside. Wanting to help, the pilot rushed to the vehicle and was impressed by Abin Sur's appearance. Even though he found it strange that he had magenta skin, he decided to try to call the hospital for help. Before he could do this, Aben had asked for him by name and revealed that the ring had chosen him as its new bearer. He said that Hal had to get the lantern from the ship and take it home, where he must swear an oath. As soon as he had finished giving the warning, Aben-Sur had lost his life and his costume had disappeared almost instantly. Not knowing what to do, Hal called Tom and asked for his friend to help him. But as soon as Tom had arrived, 2 Army helicopters also showed up, and the pair rushed to the Jeep to flee the scene. While Hal and Tom drove to safety, Sinestro had met with the Guardians and told them about Aben-Sur's elimination at the hands of Parallax. Wanting to avenge his friend, Sinestro had asked for permission to gather some men and go after the entity before it devoured other worlds. He had gotten the support of the Guardians to do so. On Earth, scientist Hector Hammond was at home playing a game of online chess when someone started ringing the doorbell. When he answered, the biologist came across 2 very strange men who ordered him to accompany them. With a hood over his head, Hector was taken to a secret base where he was introduced to Amanda. She took him to the laboratory and asked him to analyze the body of the alien they had found. Although confused, the man accepted the task and started working on Aben-Sur's body. However, when he went to analyze the wound on his chest, Hector came into contact with remnants of Parallax's energy, which entered through his finger. Unaware that he had been contaminated, Hector finished the analysis and gave the hard drive with the data to Amanda. Meanwhile, Hal had arrived home with the lantern and was about to swear the oath as Aben-Sur had asked. But he was interrupted by Carol, who arrived at his apartment door wanting to talk. Afraid that she would find out something, he took her to a bar where they finally settled the fight they had had earlier. This only lasted until Carol told him that she had analyzed the flight data and had noticed that the controls hadn't actually crashed. Upset, Hal left her alone in the bar and went to the parking lot. As he was fiddling with his keys to unlock his car, he was surprised by some men who had also been fired from Ferris because of him. Even though it was 3 against 1, Hal had tried to defend himself, but the men held his arms and he ended up taking quite a beating. As the trio was leaving, the pilot tried to throw a metal object at them and accidentally activated his Green Lantern powers, materializing a fist of energy that hit all 3 of them at once.
I told you to watch your back.
No.
Getting warmed up.
Suddenly, a sphere of energy began to form around him. He desperately tried to remove the ring, but the object seemed to stick to his finger and began to take him away from the Earth. All of this happened while Hector suffered from the cellular mutations of Parallax. After a long journey across the universe, Hal had finally arrived on the planet Oa, where the suit appeared on his body for the first time. As soon as Hal woke up, Tomar Ray appeared and introduced him to the planet of the Green Lanterns, as well as giving him his first flight instruction. Together they flew over Oa, and Tomar Ray explained the power of willpower, the energy that controlled the ring of the Green Lantern Corps. After explaining everything, the veteran Lantern took the newcomer to the center of the planet where the other Lanterns had gathered to listen to Sinestro's speech about the danger that Parallax represented for the troop. After the troop leader's speech, Tomar Ray took Hal to the training camp and explained a little more about how the ring worked, revealing that the artifact was capable of materializing everything his mind could imagine, what they called constructs. When it was his turn to try, the Earthling had a bit of trouble imitating what Tomar Ray did, but he did not even have time to worry about it because Kilowog, his combat trainer, was already on the scene, attacking. After hitting the pilot, the alien told him he couldn't let his guard down and began combat training. With his powers, Kilowog had bound Hal's feet and materialized meteors that fell on him, forcing him to build a giant metal shield to avoid being crushed. Even so, Hal still had no control over the ring, and his shield was beginning to warp, which made him even more desperate. When Kilowog launched the second meteor at him to help with the weight, the newcomer had built 2 steel pillars, and Kilowog had started throwing metal discs at him, hitting him squarely. Not satisfied, the big Green Lantern had materialized a medium-sized star that began to pull Hal toward its core, all while the instructor explained the risks of flying near a star. In the middle of the lessons, Sinestro had appeared and said that he would train him personally, as he didn't accept weak members in his troop. Hal then pulled out a sword and began to fight Sinestro, but he realized that his opponent was much more skilled and began to be overwhelmed by fear. Realizing this, the reddish alien had said that fear weakened a lantern's constructs and had managed to destroy the wall that Hal built with a single kick. Hal had materialized a minigun and tried to hit the enemy, but Sinestro managed to defend himself with a shield that he threw at the human, leaving him completely defeated. At the end of the battle, Sinestro said that Abin Sur had been his friend and that Hal had insulted his memory by using the ring, which made the pilot give up on being a Green Lantern. Trying to change his mind, Tomar Ray told him that the ring never made mistakes and that if Hal had been chosen, there was something special inside him. However, the human still insisted that he was not ready and returned to Earth. Meanwhile, Hector was teaching at the college when out of the blue he gained the ability to hear his students' thoughts and discovered that one of them was calling him crazy. In a rage, Hector had awakened telepathic powers and had caused the student to be ejected out of his chair, which scared everyone. Wondering what was going on, Hector ended class early and went to the lab to analyze his cells, discovering that they were mutating at an absurd rate. Suddenly, Hector received a message from the senator asking him to meet him in his office. There, Hammond had congratulated his son on helping the country, and Hector was confused at first, but soon understood what was going on when his father showed him the hard drive with the alien's analysis. When he discovered that his father was part of the investigation into the alien, Hector was disappointed that he had not been chosen for his talent and refused to continue with the project, leaving the office with his ego badly bruised. At the edge of the Milky Way, Sinestro led the best lanterns to Parallax and combined their powers to try to trap it. But thanks to the entity's frightening power, the troop was overcome by fear and ended up having its energy sucked away. Defeated, Sinestro returned to the Guardians and told them everything that had happened. He also said that he had calculated its trajectory and that Parallax was coming straight to OA. Thinking that the Elders were hiding something, Sinestro asked what they knew. The Immortals revealed that after years of using the power of will for everything, they had come to the conclusion that they should explore another source of energy. With this in mind, the Guardians had met to discuss what to do and had decided to use fear, but this energy was extremely unpredictable and had the power to corrupt anyone. This had made the Immortals give up on using it, except for one, Parallax. Thinking that this was the way to go, the Guardian of Oa had decided to act on his own and entered the Forbidden Chamber to channel the energy of fear. But thanks to this, he was totally corrupted and turned into the world-devouring entity he is today. To save the universe, Abin Sur had imprisoned Parallax in the Lost Sector, where he had remained ever since. But now that he had managed to escape, the former Guardian was coming straight to Oa to take revenge on his former companions and destroy the troop. Hearing all this, Sinestro said he had no other choice and decided to forge yellow rings to fight fear with fear, an extremely risky strategy. Back home, Ferris had thrown a celebration party and invited most of the town, including Hal and Hector. As soon as he arrived, the pilot asked Carol how they had gotten the contract, and she replied that she had managed to convince the general that the Sabres had only lost the simulation because Hal had broken the rules. She also said that Tom had managed to increase the altitude limit of the fighters even more. After the conversation, Carol began to walk through the hall and met Hector, who tried to talk about the work with Abin Sur's body. But the senator was nearby and managed to interrupt everything, saying that it was the story of some science fiction book. Annoyed by his father's interference, Hector walked away, and Hammond's secretary arrived to say that they should leave. While his father was in the helicopter, the scientist used his telekinesis to make a tap fly into the tail rotor, which started the aircraft crashing. With the helicopter about to sweep through the crowd, the ring began to emit a signal, and Hal managed to create a construct of a Hot Wheels car and a ramp, allowing the aerial vehicle to perform various maneuvers in midair. Suddenly, the tail rotor detached from the helicopter and flew into the metal structure just above the stage, causing tons of steel to fall toward Carol. Hal materialized a barrier to save her and ended up forgetting about the aircraft that almost crashed to the ground. But he managed to be quick enough and built a runway to save everyone. With that, the new Green Lantern made his first public appearance and left while everyone recorded the mysterious hero. After the party, Hector went home and finally finished his mutation, leaving his body totally deformed and managing to attract the attention of Parallax. Back in the lab, the scientist analyzed his cells and noticed that the mutations were getting faster and faster, which made him very happy. Suddenly, Amanda appeared and touched Hector in an attempt to summon him. As soon as she did, the senator's son was able to access all of her memories, a new psychic power. Back at the lab, Hammond apologized to his son and revealed that they had found a second DNA in the alien's body that had contaminated him. saying that they would do everything to cure him. Hector replied that he was happy like this and had never been better. He then went off on his father, forcing the team's scientists to sedate him before anything bad happened. A few hours later, Hector woke up completely restrained on a stretcher, and the senator tried to calm him down by saying that they would just do a few tests. But Hector refused to allow this to happen and used telekinesis to make the doctor inject the sedative into his own forehead. The scientist then freed himself from the handcuffs and threw Amanda's body against the glass, as well as pulling his father back and securing him to the stretcher. At that moment, the ring started sending out a warning signal to Hal, who arrived at the laboratory with all his might to eliminate Hector. Hector caused thousands of shards of glass to form a tornado that advanced toward the Green Lantern, forcing him to respond with a blowtorch that heated the material and threw the melted glass at the villain. As Hector writhed in pain, Hal hit him with a kick that sent him flying and allowed him to unlock the handcuffs from the senator's arm. But the mad scientist wasn't done yet and started throwing oxygen cylinders at the lantern until he knocked him out. Exhausted, Hector fell beside his enemy and touched his arm, gaining access to his last memories of Abin Sur and discovering the Green Lantern's true identity. Wanting to make Hal taste defeat, Hector floated the senator into a closed room and activated 2 giant blowtorches that set the place on fire, burning his own father while he was still alive. Even though he was in a lot of pain, the Green Lantern managed to stretch out his arm and put the ring on Hector's forehead, causing the scientist to go into a kind of hallucination and accidentally drawing the attention of Parallax. When he realized that a human was wearing the lantern ring that had imprisoned him, the Devourer of Worlds decided to change his ways and come personally to Earth to wipe out the humans, sucking the remaining energy from planet Earth so that he could invade Oa and destroy the Guardians. After receiving the message from Parallax, Hal decided to go to the rest of the troop and found Sinestro about to put on the yellow ring. Thinking that this was the wrong decision, the pilot said that they couldn't give in to fear and asked for help to save the Earth. However, the Guardians didn't want to risk so much and refused to help him. Alone, Hal returned to Earth and went straight to the Ferris hangar, where he found Hector holding Carol prisoner. Wanting to save her, he took off the ring and offered to exchange it for her, which left Hector extremely tempted. After some thought, the Herald of Parallax accepted the exchange and took the ring, putting it on his finger and finally feeling the power of a lantern. At that moment, Hal Jordan asked him to let Carol go, and Hector replied that he had lied while firing a blast of energy at him. But as the fighter pilot was still the true bearer of the ring, the blow stopped a few centimeters from his face and returned with everything in the scientist's chest. Taking advantage of Hector's blackout, Hal took Carol in his arms and hid behind the machines while Parallax invaded the hangar to punish his herald. Extremely overpowered, the entity refused to admit failure and sucked all the energy of fear out of Hector, causing his body to wither away. With the ring on his finger, Hal decided to come out of hiding and ran to reach the object, but Parallax noticed and began to pull it off with his telekinesis. Knowing that her companion would perish if she did nothing, Carol ran to the computer and activated the saber weapons in the hangar, causing the entity to retreat and saving Hal. With the ring in hand, Carol threw the object to her friend, who put on the suit and took them both to safety. But while Hal was saying goodbye to the girl, Parallax began its attack and started devouring people who were walking down the street, leaving them trapped due to its gigantic size. In the midst of the confusion, a kindergarten teacher was running from the creature, which fired a blast of energy at her. But just as she was about to be hit, Hal appeared and materialized a trebuchet that threw the projectile back. Continuing his attack, the Green Lantern threw a tanker truck toward Parallax and started shooting at the gasoline. But even with the explosion, the entity didn't seem to take any damage and released a ball of energy that knocked Hal away. While the Devourer said he would destroy everything Hal loved, he retook the oath of the Green Lanterns and got enough power to push Parallax back a few meters. Suddenly, Hal materialized a kind of propeller and made the object pass through the entity's body while he followed behind, arriving on the other side and luring the Devourer of Worlds away from the Earth. Flying through the solar system, Hal took Parallax into a cloud of rocks while trying to dodge the objects, but he ended up being hit by the Devourer, which left him badly injured. At this point, Hal remembered Kilowog's lesson about the stars and decided to lure Parallax closer to the sun. As soon as he got close enough to be pulled by gravity, the lantern created 2 fighters and started flying away from the star while Parallax tried to hit him. Gathering his last strength, Hal created a construct of a gigantic hand, which he used to hit Parallax in the face, causing the Devourer of Worlds to be pulled to the surface of the sun and have his body incinerated. With his energy gone, Hal blacked out and was also attracted to the star in the solar system, but was saved by Sinestro, who pulled him back and took him to the planet Oa, where the entire Green Lantern Corps celebrated their victory alongside their new companion.
Can I train him? Or
So, what did you think of the movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you in the next video.